Earth smoldered, the human homeworld now a ruined hellscape, rendered lifeless by an alien bombardment from the Iconians. Little remained of the once great cities and nations. Boron, the ruthless Iconian commander, watched the carnage from orbit, confident no human survivors would be left. But he was wrong. Amidst the crumbled skyscrapers and burnt-out cars of New York City, a man crawled from the debris. He coughed up concrete dust and spat blood from split lips. Terry Baker, ex-Special Forces, now possibly humanity's last hope. He gripped a sputtering communicator in trembling hands. "Earth may have fallen," Terry growled into the device. "But we humans are still here, Boron. We're coming for you, Iconian bastards. Every last one of you will pay in blood for this genocide. Nowhere in this galaxy will be safe. It's not over until your species is erased from existence." He hoisted himself up on shattered legs, stumbling towards the few dirty, emaciated survivors who had gathered around him, drawn by his words. Hardened men and women, all they had left was rage and a hunger for vengeance against the monsters who stole everything. Against all odds, they would make the aliens regret their fatal mistake, leaving some humans alive. The war had just begun, and humanity would fight until its dying breath to make the Iconians extinct. Terry gripped his pack, stuffed with weapons and supplies pilfered from the ruins. His surviving team had their roles. Mike, call sign Gunner, hefted a heavy pulse rifle. He and Terry went way back, both ex-Special Forces. Liam, their resident tech expert, fiddled with a salvaged datapad studying schematics. Sarah, a combat medic, checked everyone's bandages one last time. They approached the old military base nestled in the Rockies on foot to avoid detection. Getting the Phantom X stealth ship was key to taking the fight to the Iconians. Terry frowned, recalling his past with that alien scum Boron. The joint peacekeeping mission felt like a lifetime ago. He'd seen through Boron's facade of cooperation, uncovering proof the Iconian planned to stab humanity in the back. But when Terry tried to warn the Iconian leaders, that snake Boron twisted it around, painting Terry as a lying warmonger. Terry had to watch, helpless as he was kicked off the mission in disgrace. He'd known this day would come, Earth in ashes, because he failed to stop Boron in time. His hands balled into fists. Never again. "Gunner, take point. Liam, work on jamming their sensors," Terry ordered. "Let's get in there and steal that ship. For Earth." The team breached the base through an old access tunnel Liam unlocked. Red emergency lights flashed, and klaxons blared as they sprinted through stark corridors. Terry mowed down sentry drones with precise bursts from his rifle. An Iconian fire team in heavy armor appeared ahead. Pulse blasts flew by Terry's head as he dove for cover. "Zor!" Gunner snarled, recognizing Boron's second-in-command. The hulking Iconian barked orders at his soldiers, directing their fire. Terry and his team were pinned, outgunned. He had to act fast. Grabbing a grenade, Terry lunged from cover, hollering. "Over here, you Iconian dog!" Terry roared, pulling their attention. "Come and get me!" Pulse blasts stitched the wall behind him as Terry zigzagged, drawing Zor's fire. Gunner seized the chance, flanking the distracted Iconians. Liam overloaded their armor with a feedback pulse. The aliens shrieked as Gunner drilled smoking holes through their skulls. Terry kicked Zor's corpse aside and snatched up his rifle. "Hangers through here," he grunted, leading the way. The Phantom X crouched in the center of the hangar, a sleek black arrowhead bristling with advanced stealth tech. VTOL engines hummed to life as the team scrambled aboard, and Liam fired up the controls. The ship rocketed out through the hangar doors in a plume of smoke, cloaking as it knifed into the sky. "Set course for Proxima Centauri," Terry ordered, watching the base recede on monitors. "Time to take the fight to them. I'm coming for you, Boron." As the Phantom X glided through the void towards Proxima Centauri, a blinking light on the comm panel caught Liam's eye. He tapped the screen, his brow furrowing. "Cap, we've got an incoming distress signal. It's coming from an asteroid field near our position." Terry leaned over Liam's shoulder, studying the readout. "Can you clean it up? Let's hear it." Liam nodded, his fingers flying across the controls. A crackling voice filled the cockpit, punctuated by static. "This is Zach Sorensen of the Proxima mining facility. We are under attack by Iconian drones, requesting immediate assistance from any friendly forces in the area. Please, help us." Terry's eyes narrowed. That name rang a bell. Zach Sorensen, wasn't he that Iconian engineer who defected before the war? Liam pulled up a file on his datapad. Yep, that's him. Looks like he's been hiding out with some other survivors in that old mining facility. Terry stroked his chin, considering their options. They couldn't afford any detours, not with Boron still out there, but leaving fellow humans to die at the hands of those Iconian bastards? Not an option. "Change course," he ordered. "We're going in." As they approached the asteroid field, Liam detected a small group of life signs holed up in the mining facility. But there was something else too. A swarm of Iconian drones closing in fast. "Gunner, suit up," Terry barked. "We're going for a walk." Minutes later, Terry and Gunner stood in the airlock, sealed into their EVA gear. Liam's voice crackled over the comm. "I'll keep the Phantom cloaked and nearby. You two get in there, grab those survivors, and get out fast. And watch your backs, those drones are nasty." Terry nodded, checking his rifle one last time. "Copy that. See you on the flip side." The airlock hissed open, and Terry and Gunner stepped out into the silent vacuum of space. Using the Phantom X's stealth field as cover, they jetted towards the mining facility, dodging chunks of rock and debris. They touched down near an airlock, and Gunner set to work on the controls. Terry kept watch, his rifle at the ready. Suddenly a swarm of drones crested a nearby asteroid, their red sensor eyes glowing malevolently. "Contact!" Terry yelled, opening fire. Pulse blasts stitched the airlock as Gunner cursed, struggling with the lock. Just as the drones bore down on them, the airlock hissed open. Terry and Gunner piled inside, sealing the door behind them. The drones slammed into the other side, scrabbling at the metal with razor-sharp claws. "That was too close," Gunner panted, reloading his rifle. Terry just grunted in response, scanning the corridor ahead. "Let's move." They fought their way through the facility, taking down drones left and right. The deeper they pushed, the thicker the swarm became. Terry's rifle clicked empty, and he snatched up a fallen drone's pulse blaster, barely breaking stride. At last they reached the command center. Terry kicked in the door, rifle leveled, and found himself face to face with a haggard-looking man in a tattered engineer's uniform. Zach Sorensen, in the flesh. "Thank the stars," Zach breathed, lowering his own weapon. "I thought we were done for." Behind him, a cluster of wide-eyed survivors huddled together, clutching makeshift weapons. Terry did a quick head count, 15 in all, mostly civilians. Not a soldier among them. "Zach Sorensen?" Terry asked, lowering his rifle. "I'm Captain Terry Baker. We picked up your distress call." Zach's eyes widened in recognition. "Terry Baker, I've heard of you. You're the one who tried to warn us about Boron." Terry's jaw clenched at the mention of that name. "Yeah, that's me. Lot of good it did." He shook his head, pushing aside the old bitterness. "We need to get you folks out of here fast. Grab whatever gear you can carry and follow me." As the survivors hastily gathered their belongings, Zach pulled Terry aside. "Listen," he said urgently. "There's something you need to know. Boron's not just after Earth. He's after something called the Nexus." Terry frowned. "The Nexus? What the hell is that?" "An ancient alien artifact, hidden somewhere in this system. I don't know much about it, but according to the stories, it grants the power to control matter and energy itself." Zach's voice dropped to a whisper. "And Boron intends to use it to reshape the entire galaxy in his image." Terry's blood ran cold. With that kind of power at his fingertips, Boron would be unstoppable. He met Zach's gaze, his resolve hardening. "We'll stop him," he vowed. "We have to." Zach nodded grimly. "There's more. I've uncovered some ancient star maps that might point the way to the Nexus, but I can't make heads or tails of them. Maybe your people can." "We'll take a look," Terry promised. "But first, let's get the hell out of here." They fought their way back to the airlock, the survivors sticking close behind Terry and Gunner. Liam piloted the Phantom X in close, its stealth field shimmering. One by one they leaped across the void, scrambling aboard the waiting ship. As the last survivor climbed aboard, a figure jetted out from behind a nearby asteroid. Terry froze, his breath catching in his throat. He knew that silhouette, even with the cybernetic enhancements. "Wilson," he breathed. "Jack, is that you?" His old mentor, his friend, hovered before him, half man, half machine. Wilson's remaining human eye met Terry's, and for a moment something like recognition flickered there. Then Wilson raised his pulse rifle and opened fire. Terry dove aside, his EVA suit sparking as a blast grazed his helmet. He rolled to his feet, bringing up his own rifle, but he hesitated, unable to pull the trigger. "Jack, don't do this," he pleaded. "It's me, Terry. We're friends, remember?" But there was no answer in Wilson's remaining eye, only a blank, pitiless stare. He advanced on Terry, his cybernetic limbs whirring, his rifle leveled at Terry's chest. Terry's finger tightened on the trigger. His heart screamed in protest, but his head knew the truth. The man he had known, the mentor he had loved, was gone. In his place stood a soulless machine, a puppet dancing on Boron's strings. "I'm sorry," Terry whispered, and then he pulled the trigger. The pulse blast caught Wilson square in the chest, burning through his armor like tissue paper. The cyborg staggered back, sparks cascading from the gaping hole in his torso. His rifle tumbled from nerveless fingers as he drifted, dead in space. Tears streaming down his face, Terry turned and jetted back to the Phantom X. He stumbled through the airlock, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Gunnar caught him as he fell, easing him to the deck. "Terry?" Gunnar asked, his voice tight with concern. "What happened out there?" Terry just shook his head, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He had just killed his best friend, his brother in arms, the man who had taught him everything he knew. But that man was long gone, he reminded himself. Boron had seen to that, and now more than ever Terry was determined to make that bastard pay. He pushed himself to his feet, meeting Gunnar's worried gaze. "It's nothing," he said roughly, brushing past him. "Let's get out of here." As the Phantom X rocketed away from the asteroid field, Terry stood before the viewport, watching the stars streak by. Somewhere out there, Boron was waiting, and Terry would find him, no matter the cost. He turned to Zack, his eyes hard. "Show me those star maps. It's time we beat Boron at his own game." Zack's fingers flew across the Phantom X's controls as the star maps flashed on the screens. "I've got it! The Nexus is on this uncharted planet in the Eridani system." Terry leaned over Zack's shoulder, studying the readouts. His eyes narrowed. "Looks like Boron's already there. Massive excavation operation underway." "He's going for the Nexus," Liam said grimly. Terry nodded. "And we have to stop him. Gear up, people. It's now or never." As the Phantom X screamed towards the planet, Terry outlined the plan. "Zack and I will lead a diversion, hit Boron's command center hard. Gunnar, you take Liam and Sarah, infiltrate that dig site, secure the Nexus at any cost." The team split up as the Phantom X entered atmosphere. Pulse blasts streaked past the cockpit. Iconian fighters swarmed like angry hornets. "Hang on!" Zack yelled. He wrenched the controls and the ship jinked hard, narrowly dodging the incoming fire. Terry spotted an Iconian dropship landing at the dig site below. "There, bring us in close." Zack swooped low, dodging flak bursts. Terry hit the hatch controls. Wind whipped through the hold as the ramp lowered. "Go, go, go!" Terry roared. Gunnar led the charge, leaping into the dropship with guns blazing. Iconian soldiers crumpled, holes smoking in their armor. Liam and Sarah followed close behind. Terry keyed his comm. "Package is away. We'll keep Boron busy. Get that Nexus." "Copy that," Gunnar replied. "Good hunting." Pulse blasts hammered the Phantom X as Zack peeled away, engines howling. Terry swung the turret around, raking the Iconian positions with searing energy bolts. "Incoming fighters," Zack warned. "I see them." Terry gritted his teeth, fingers tightening on the trigger. The turret bucked as he walked streams of fire across the Iconian formation. Ships exploded, raining molten debris. A heavily guarded platform rose into view, bristling with anti-aircraft guns, and there, standing at its center— "Boron," Terry snarled. Red rage surged through his veins. His vision tunneled. There was only the enemy, the monster who destroyed his world. "Ram it," Terry ordered, voice cold as space. "Take that bastard out." Zack hesitated. "Terry will never—" "Do it." The Phantom X lurched as Zack gunned the engines, aiming the ship like a spear at Boron's heart. Iconian pulse blasts flensed the shields, alarms shrieking. Terry poured everything into the forward batteries, determined to take Boron with him. Suddenly, a shaped charge detonated against the command center's support struts. The platform listed, crumbling. Boron stumbled, off balance. Zack wrenched the controls, pulling the Phantom X out of its kamikaze run at the last possible second. The ship hurtled past, close enough to scorch the platform's deck plates. Terry slumped back, breath ragged. That had been too close. "Good flying," he managed. Zack just nodded, hands shaking on the controls. At the dig site, Gunnar, Liam and Sarah crept through the labyrinthine tunnels, following the Nexus's eerie glow. The artifact pulsed with eldritch energy, setting their nerves on fire. "I really don't like this," Sarah murmured. "We have no idea what that thing can do." "Doesn't matter," Gunnar replied. "We can't let Boron have it." They emerged into a massive cavern, the Nexus hovering at its center. Gunnar started forward, and a plasma bolt seared past his head. He cursed, diving for cover. "Ambush!" Liam yelled. Iconian special forces poured into the cavern, pulse rifles crackling. At their head strode a familiar figure, half his face a metal ruin. "Zor," Gunnar growled. "Slippery bastard!" Zor leveled his rifle. "Die, human scum!" And then there was no more time for words. Gunnar and Zor clashed in a whirlwind of strikes and counterstrikes, moving almost too fast to follow. Liam and Sarah laid down covering fire, struggling to keep the other Iconians at bay. A plasma grenade detonated near Sarah. She cried out, throwing herself in front of Liam. The blast scorched her back, flensing armor and flesh. She fell heavily, blood pooling beneath her. "No!" Liam screamed. He caught her, easing her to the ground. Sarah coughed wetly, red bubbling from her lips. "Get the Nexus." Liam looked up, torn. The Nexus glowed tantalizingly close. The Iconians closed in, death in their eyes. He hardened his resolve and lunged for the artifact, scooping it up. It pulsed in his hands, ancient energy swirling. Liam focused his will, and the Nexus ignited like a newborn star. A wave of searing light exploded outwards, vaporizing the Iconians where they stood. It washed over Sarah, and she gasped, her wounds sealing over, flesh made whole. And then it was gone, and Liam collapsed, the Nexus clattering from his nerveless fingers. Gunnar dispatched Zor with a vicious headbutt and a point-blank shot, then scooped up Liam's limp form. "Fall back," he ordered. Sarah grabbed the Nexus and they ran, not daring to look back. The ground shook as Boron's command center exploded high above, the blast wave nearly knocking them from their feet. They staggered aboard the Phantom X, Gunnar laying Liam gently on a bunk. Terry and Zack stumbled in a moment later, singed and battered but alive. Terry's eyes locked on the Nexus, clutched tight in Sarah's hands. "Is that—" She nodded grimly. "Yeah, we got it, but Liam, he used it. I don't know if he'll—" As if in answer, Liam stirred, groaning softly. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Terry knelt beside him, clasping his shoulder. "You did good, kid, real good. Just rest now." He stood, facing his battered team. "We all did. Boron's plan is in ruins, but this isn't over, not by a long shot." Terry glanced at the Nexus, jaw tight. The artifact seemed to stare back, ancient and inscrutable. "Boron knows we have it now. He'll come for it. For us, we need to be ready." The Phantom X limped away, cloaking as it fled the planet's gravity well. But even as they made their escape, Terry couldn't shake the feeling that they had just kicked a hornet's nest. And somewhere out there, Boron was already plotting his revenge. The Phantom X limped back into space, thrusters sputtering and hull scorched from the ferocious battle. Terry and Zack staggered aboard, exhausted and bloodied, but alive. They found Gunnar and Sarah huddled around Liam in the medbay, the young tech expert pale and shaking on the cot. "He's in shock," Sarah said grimly, checking Liam's vitals. "Contact with the Nexus really did a number on him." Terry knelt beside Liam, gripping his shoulder. "Hang in there, kid, we need you." Liam's eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Terry," he croaked, "the Nexus, it's not what we thought." The others gathered around as Liam struggled to sit up, wincing. "I saw everything. The Nexus, it's not a weapon, it's a doorway." "A doorway to what?" Zack asked, perplexed. "To them," Liam whispered, "the ones who came before. An ancient race, long gone, their collective consciousness preserved in a higher realm." Terry frowned, trying to wrap his head around it. "So the Nexus is what, some kind of conduit?" Liam nodded weakly. "A bridge between our universe and theirs. It was never meant to be used by us. We weren't ready." Gunnar crossed his arms. "But Boron was sure as hell going to try anyway." "Boron doesn't know the truth," Liam said, shuddering. "None of the Iconians do. They're being manipulated, used. We all are." "Used by who?" Sarah asked, fear creeping into her voice. "The Void," Liam breathed. "I saw it in the vision. An entity from beyond, hungry to consume everything. It's the real enemy, not the Iconians." Terry's blood ran cold. He'd seen a lot of shit in this war, but this was a whole new level of bad. "So what do we do?" Liam met his gaze, eyes haunted. "The Void wants the Nexus, craves its power. As long as it exists, the Void will keep coming. We have to destroy it." "Destroy it," Zack sputtered. "But we need it. We can use it to rebuild Earth, to set things right." Terry held up a hand, silencing him. He knew what had to be done, what he had to do. "No," he said quietly. "Liam's right. The Nexus is too dangerous. It has to end here." He looked around at his battered, weary team. The last of the human resistance. His friends. "I'll do it," Terry said firmly. "I'll fly the Phantom X into the heart of the Nexus with an antimatter bomb. Blow it to Kingdom Come." Gunnar started to protest, but Terry cut him off. "I'm not asking, Gunnar, I'm telling. This is a one-way trip and you've got a job to do here. You all do." Terry turned to Liam, expression softening. "Kid, I need you to pull it together. You've got to warn people about the Void. Make sure the Iconians know the truth." Liam nodded, eyes brimming with tears. "I will, Cap, I promise." Terry clasped hands with Gunnar and Zack, embraced Sarah. A final goodbye to the only family he had left. Then he squared his shoulders and strode towards the Phantom X's airlock, a man walking to his own funeral. As he reached for the hatch controls, a voice rasped from the shadows. "Wait!" Terry spun, rifle up, and froze. Boron slumped against the wall, hand pressed to a seeping wound in his side. The Iconian's face was ashen, his eyes haunted. "Come to finish the job?" Terry growled, finger tightening on the trigger. But Boron shook his head. "No, Terry, I've come to help you." Terry blinked, sure he'd heard wrong. "What?" Boron pushed off the wall with a pained grunt. "The Void, I know of it. I felt its influence, pushing my people to war. I thought I could control it, use it. I was wrong." The Iconian met Terry's gaze, his voice urgent. "Everything I did, all the death and destruction, I thought it would unite us against the coming darkness. But I played right into the Void's hands. We all did." Terry lowered his rifle slowly, reeling. In all his years of fighting, he'd never once considered that Boron might be just another pawn in this twisted game. The enemy of my enemy. "All right," he said at last. "You're with me then. We end this together." Boron nodded grimly. "For Earth, for Iconia, for us all." Side by side, the two former enemies boarded the Phantom X. As Terry programmed the autopilot and armed the antimatter bomb, he felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. This was it, the end of the line. He turned to Boron, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Hell of a way to go out, huh?" Boron actually chuckled. "Indeed, you humans have a saying, I believe, out with a bang." The Phantom X tore through space, a gleaming black arrow aimed at the heart of the Nexus. Terry stood before the viewscreen, watching the swirling anomaly grow larger by the second. In its chaotic depths, he thought he could almost see the faces of the fallen. Wilson, Zor, the countless others lost to this bitter war. "I'm coming home," Terry whispered, a final prayer for the souls of Earth. The antimatter bomb detonated. The universe went white. In an instant, the Nexus vanished, the rift between realms sealed forever. Across the galaxy, the void's howl of rage echoed and faded, its malevolent presence diminished. The war was over. The final sacrifice had been made. On a dozen scattered worlds, the remnants of humanity and the Iconian race looked to the stars and dared to dream of a future. There was still so much to rebuild, so many wounds to heal. But they would face it together, united against the darkness. In the light of a new dawn, Gunnar, Sarah, and Liam stood before a sea of survivors, heroes forged in the crucible of war. As they spoke of Terry Baker's bravery, of Boron's final redemption, a ripple of hope spread through the assembled. A reminder that even in the deepest despair, the indomitable spirit of life would always find a way. The road ahead would be long and hard. The scars left by the void would linger for generations, but as the three friends looked out over the crowd, they knew one thing for certain. The light of unity would guide them, and the memory of the fallen would forever spur them forward to whatever lay beyond. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.